For EVIT on March 11th, our regular board meeting to order. Wake you up? All right, public notice. Call for, okay. Call order, I've done that. Pledge of allegiance, you want to do the pledge?
I will.
Okay.
Do it. I will. He's up. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Get my pen, check that off. Okay, need a motion for regular board meeting, 3A.
I'll move that we approve the regular meeting minutes for February 26, 2024.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a first and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for the question and acclamation.
all those in favor of accepting the meeting minutes from February 26, 2024 meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a call to the public.
I do not believe we have a call to the public, no, sir.
No call to the public. Okay. We have a consent agenda. I'd like a motion for probably A through L, if possible, for the consent agendas.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through L.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion on any item? Do anybody want to pull anything? Hearing none, let's vote for acclamation for the consent agendas, please.
All those in favor of the consent agenda, including items A through L, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Item 6, personnel.
Mr. President.
Dr. Wilson, you want to say anything?
I believe
Whoop.
Mr. Hobson has a question.
I was going to move the approval of items A through E.
Oh,
6A through E. Unless there's any reason to hear any particular item.
We already voted, though.
Wait,
We've already voted.
I,
6A through E is not the consent agenda.
did you say A through B, Mr. Hobson?
A through E,
A through E?
yes.
We didn't do
We
personnel.
haven't done,
haven't
yeah,
done-
We haven't done personnel.
six yet.
We just finished with the consent, didn't we?
Yes.
That's 5. And we're now.
Would you like to make a motion on 6A or B?
I would move the approval of A through E. Unless any of them are required to be dealt with separately. It seems to me that these are items that can be
Yeah.
handled collectively as well.
Don't we need a,
Correct.
We did
believe
items A through L.
No, he's making a motion under 6 to approve 6A through E.
A through E?
Yes.
It only goes to
He's
D,
getting
but
ahead of
okay.
Goes
It
to
goes to
E.
E.
There, D?
The,
there are options for one of them.
C, D.
correct.
I don't see.
We have to select an item.
There's A, B, C, D.
And there's also an E
And there's an E on the next.
There's no E.
On the next page, there's.
on the next page.
okay, we need to.
No, that's B. That's continuation of B, C, D.
Gosh, I'm embarrassed.
We got different pages.
Mr. President,
Is there-
let's just move to approve item 6A. I make that motion.
Okay,
We have to pull C.
6E is at the top of the board,
see here.
just before 7.
I got you. My fingers will work. There's A, B, C, D, E. Okay, health benefits. Okay.
We have to pull salary.
I'll
have to
second
vote
the
on
motion,
salary.
unless somebody already has.
We have to vote on salary.
So, Mr. President, item C, I think, requires a decision by the governing board, so I could
Okay.
understand all A through E with the exception of C, because I don't know that you know exactly what you're voting on in C.
We don't.
True.
Let's just do them in order then. So, Mr. Chairman, I move item 6A.
Okay,
I'll second 6A.
okay, we have a motion for 6A. In a second. Any discussion on 6A? Hearing none, vote by acclamation, please. Call for a question.
Okay, all members, or all those in favor of item 6A personnel, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay. No, I don't say nay, I'm sorry. I said aye.
Okay, so item 6A is unanimous, carries. Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry about that.
Mr. President, I move that we approve item 6B.
Okay, 6B
Second.
has a motion. Do I have a second?
Shelley.
We got a second from Mr. Lane.
No, Shelley.
Oh, Shelley. Thank you, Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, my ears aren't working.
That's okay.
That's life. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for the question.
All those in favor of item 6B, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed to 6B, please say nay. Motion carries, Mr. President.
Thank you. Item C, we need a lot of discussion on that one.
Yes, we
Dr.
do.
Wilson?
So, Mr. President, members of the governing board, this is a continuation of the meeting we had several days ago in which you were provided the opportunity to begin kind of thinking through what, if any, sort of salary increases you would like for the high school instructional staff and the vast majority of support staff. There were a couple of questions asked of us that we'd like to provide some of that information on. So I'm going to call Ms. Perez up for a minute to talk. One of the questions I believe was asked, do we know what the average salary is for Westmac, the average salary is for Pima JTED, what the starting salary is for Westmac, what the starting salary is for Pima JTED. So if Ms. Perez can kind of start us off with that, then we'll continue on with other items that you asked us to find information on.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the governing board. The information that we found as far as EVIT's base salary, as I had mentioned in the previous board meeting, is about $50,000 with the assumption that all instructors will have a minimum of 3 years of industry experience, which is what would be required in order for them to be certified. So that's $50,000 as the base. As a new teacher, you also wanted to know what is the average of what we hire into EVIT, and the average of all the instructors new to EVIT during the current fiscal year is $63,155. What is the average of all of our instructors, again, for the current year is $65,910. How do we compare against when we're looking at Westmac? Westmac has a base salary of $65,000, but they do have an 11-month contract. So we have a 10-month contract, so the equivalent of that would be $59,000. The difference here is, yes, there is obviously a higher amount at Westmac, but what we also like to take into account is the additional compensation that our instructors do receive through 301. We have a performance-based component, we have a placement component, and we also have a certification component. With all of those three pieces, our instructors on average, again, it's, there's obviously the min and the higher, but on average make an additional $12,885. And these numbers are based on last year's compensation. We won't know the results of the performance base until the end of this fiscal year. Westmac, on average, their average salaries, and this is information just from their website, is $68,901 for the equivalent of a 10-month contract, because I want to make sure that you get the accurate comparison. When we look at Pima JTED, their base salary is $46,351, and their average is $60,068.
So checking my comprehension, thank you, Ms. Perez. I know that you had to do a lot of unpacking, so checking my comprehension. So an average salary, say at Westmac, for an instructor on a 10-month comparable apples to apples is what?
$68,901.
And what is ours?
$65,910.
Okay. And what is Pima JTED's?
$60,068.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Perez?
I don't.
Mr. President, may I ask a question? I'm curious, how do you calculate the inflation rate?
We go off of whatever is industry. We look at the U.S. Department of Labor statistics to understand what the current rate is. And the last published was in January of 2024.
Thank you.
Dr. Wilson, can you talk about the growth in our district,
Yeah.
please?
One of
Never
the things that's exciting that we're experiencing here at EVIT is significant growth. I think I've been the superintendent, I don't know how long. But when I first became superintendent, I want to say our enrollment, what would you guess?
I would say under 5,000, definitely.
So I would say it was more in the neighborhood of 3,900, and this year we're at about,
Without adult
Without.
ed only, it's close to 7,000.
and next year we're trending to have growth again. And that's a wonderful thing because it means that individuals are seeing the value of CTE. The tough part with that is that because we're not a neighborhood school in which people move into, there is no assurance that we're going to have those numbers, right? So we're always kind of fighting that ladder of growth. We're experiencing growth like we've never experienced both on the high school and the adult side.
But we built with no growth, right?
Yeah, so our budget this past year, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. President, our budget, and it was very conservative, and I appreciate the governing board's doing this, was built off of no growth. So the budget, correct?
Correct.
Correct. So the budget that you approved and the dollars that you're utilizing to pay for this year was built off not having any growth. When we wind up having anywhere between 15 and 18% growth, then certainly there's dollars that are in the system that weren't earmarked for need this year. What that does is it gives us a revenue surplus, and we've talked about this before, of being very mindful of the taxpayer dollars, the revenue surplus going back into our employees, because ultimately employees are what make this organization work, but being responsible enough to have money set aside in case that growth curve doesn't come one year, that we can offset some of that without having to reduce salaries, and also knowing that we don't go out for bonds and overrides, having the revenue to continue our expansion. So we're very fortunate that we have growth. We're very fortunate that we built the budget on zero growth, so we have additional revenue that can go towards compensating our employees, but also go towards being good fiscal stewards of our taxpayer dollars. One of the questions that was asked as well is do we know what percentage increases are going to be offered to our neighboring districts? And I got to tell you, that's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. When I talked to both Westmac and Pima JTED, they have offered employment, but have not offered compensation. So what they did is they had on an agenda the offer of employment to individuals. The contracts will read, the salary will be adjusted if and when their budgetary solutions are determined. Certainly that's not an uncommon practice. I don't know that that's the practice that I would encourage us to employ. I think that as an employee, if I'm going to sign a contract to come work, I'd like to know what that contract amount's going to be versus knowing just I have a job, what's that really going to look like? I talked to our lobbyist. One of the questions was, do we know what's going to happen at the state level? And our lobbyist said that what she's understanding is that there won't be any cuts to public education, but there probably isn't going to be any additional revenue to public education, at least in the short term, because of the budget shortfall that the state is facing. So you look at that one of two ways. We always want there to be more money coming in, but we also have lived through times in which money was taken away, and that is a challenge in and of itself. And so that coupled with the fact that we built the budget on 0% growth, the fact that we're experiencing growth like we've never had before, the fact that you guys have been good stewards of taxpayer dollars, I think sets the table for you to make decisions that are in the best interest of the organization and feel that those decisions are sound, and that we'll have revenue to pay our faculty and staff, we'll have revenue to offset shortfalls in the future, and we'll have revenue to continue to remodel and expand the organization to accommodate the growth. I don't know if there were other questions?
Yeah, my question is, if we give a 5% raise to our teachers, the beginning salary become what? Will it be raised by 5%?
I want to make sure I'm understanding the question. The base salary moving forward for new instructors.
Yes.
Traditionally, what the board has done in the past is if you do a 5%, we've increased the base salary by 2.5% because we don't want the new hires to come in at a higher percentage than what our current employees are.
Okay.
So that's one of the hard things that districts navigate, that if you wind up having dollars that go into the base, and you have individuals come into the organization brand new that are at or above, in some cases, individuals that have been here for a period of time. And so we had never really raised the base, and that was a problem for us because in our attraction of applicants, although our back end with 301 was really competitive, it was the front end that people were seeing, and the front end of the base hadn't been risen over a number of years. And so we made the decision a number of years ago to say that we want to continually increase the base, but not at a rate that it leapfrogs existing employees. And so we always took the position, you took the position of whatever percent was offered to staff, half that was placed onto the base so that it would come up as well.
And
Right.
to clarify, what we're discussing now on 6C is only for our current, increases for our current staff, and we would determine contracts for new base levels for new staff at some later date.
Correct.
Correct.
All right, I'd like to move the notion of, for our certified staff, we go with option B. And with our hourly and salary support staff, go with option C.
So just checking my comprehension, that would mean a 6% increase for high school instructors and a 5% increase for support staff, is the
Correct.
motion.
Is there a second? Hearing none, I'd entertain another motion.
I'll try. I'll try
Okay.
one.
Say B.
So I move to approve option B of a 6% increase for certified instructional staff and option B, a 4% increase for other staff.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Just want to make sure I understand, Mr. President. Option B for high school instructors at 6%, and
Yes.
option B at 4% for classified staff. Is that correct? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Why not option C? Anybody?
You
That
wanna-
was my motion.
That was yours?
Yeah,
Thank you. Nobody seconded.
that one died. So we have this current motion.
It wasn't seconded.
Can I,
Yes, it
Ms.
was.
Ms. President, can I ask you a question?
Thought it-
Why are we paying
Yeah, they would,
classified staff less? I mean, why don't, I mean, tell me, what's the rationale for, I mean, instructors are really important, and I agree. My inclination is, it's actually drive everyone crazy and ask for 7% for the staff, but 5% for the, option C for both of them. It sounds to me like we've got lots of money in the bank. And I understand Ms. Perez and Dr. Wilson's caution, but neither of them said, we gotta hide some money under the mattress, guys, because this is gonna
Do
turn
we have to
south.
hide money under the mattress, Dr. Wilson?
Well, that's uncomfortable.
I meant that metaphorically.
Metaphorically, coming
But-
from me. Yes, thank you.
But
Thank you.
Seems to me our staff is as important as our instructors. They're just not up in front of classrooms maybe, and we're not passing out awards for them, which I think are good things. But why we would pay them less than the recommended, than option C, I don't understand. And I think we ought to pay our instructors the 7%, candidly. So when we get to the vote, well, before that, I'm gonna offer a substitute motion. And my substitute motion is that it's option C for the instructional staff, and it's option C for all of the staff.
We have to basically,
No, he's making a motion to amend.
to amend.
It's a substitute, it's a motion, it's a substitute motion, so it's, I think it takes priority as I understand the rules.
I think, sorry.
It's a motion to amend, so if.
So I think you have to
Second.
approve the
We
motion
have-
to amend.
Yeah, option B, it keeps us in the center. And Laura and I were like, spending M&O money makes me so nervous.
I can't sleep if we don't, if we spend M&O money. I mean, I realize M&O money is the foundation of what we're doing, and I'm not saying we shouldn't support our teachers. But M&O money is our bread and butter, and my philosophy is keep everything out of M&O as much as possible. And that worries me in case some sort of weird hiccup comes down from either the legislature or those students that we're anticipating showing up, get off the bus somewhere else. And our M&O is what basically covers us. And that maybe that's old school, but that is just how I feel. It makes me stay up at night when we spend our M&O.
Is there a way that you can reassure us that we're good with, like, because
Well,
I'm
they
feeling
have
nervous
done
too
a
about
nice
that.
job of being able to gear this is a very conservative budget, at least as far as raises go. And I agree with that. So maybe I'm just being overly cautious that since it is conservative, it's looking at the bottom line, and then anything on top of that is frosting on the cake. But I'm still of the opinion that M&O should be preserved in case something else should happen that we don't know about. But, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's happening. But, my philosophy as an administrator for the last 23 years has been you don't touch M&O unless you absolutely have to. That's just me. But these are very good figures as far as total raises. It would, I think we would probably be okay, as you have said, Dr. Wilson, and as you have said, Ms. Perez. But my hesitancy is just M&O is just, that's what we don't touch. But that's not necessarily what we need to do here. So I throw this back to my fellow board members to discuss.
I'd like to move to make a motion to approve option C.
Or who?
Don't we have to?
I second his
Second.
motion
Don't we have to
Motion
vote?
for option C.
We have to
So,
vote.
the way I understand it is that the motion that was made, that Mr. Hobson is actually making an amendment to the motion. It was seconded by Mr. Ellison, and so you have to vote on whether or not you want to approve the amendment. Not necessarily are you approving what Mr. Hobson suggested, but you're approving the amendment. And if that's the case, then you'll take a vote again for whether or not you want that amount as was described, and you'll have another round to discuss. So I think what's on the table is a
Is
vote
making a vote to approve the amendment?
to approve the amendment.
Correct.
Would you repeat what the amendment is, please?
It's essentially
B all the way
option
across?
six.
He wants to go C all the way across.
Mr.
Option
Hobson,
C.
you want C all the way across for certified and classified, is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
that is the amended motion that we as a board need to agree on.
It was seconded by Mr. Ellison. Now I think you all have to vote and have
To
a
amend it.
majority approve it or not to have it be amended.
Right, we have to agree.
That's just, that, and the vote is only if, whether that will be the motion that we'll then
Correct.
consider.
Correct.
Do we have a chance to discuss the
Yes.
amendment? Okay, I'm interested, Mr. Hobson, I want to, I guess, actually underline your question that you asked, which was, and I think we discussed this to some extent last Thursday, but could we go over again why there are recommendations that are different between increases for high school staff and other staff, what the rationale for that is?
Sure.
Please.
So I want to preface it by saying, at times I think folks conclude that that's a value judgment about people's role and responsibilities, and it isn't. When we say that the governing board over the past 4 or 5 years has increased instructional salaries by about 44%, and support staff by about 23%. That 23% doesn't take into consideration the rearranging that was done. So in many ways, we had individuals in the support staff that were below what the market was bearing. And so we went out and did a market analysis and rearranged them so that they were then becoming competitive. That was not part of that 23%. So throughout the process, we have continued to look for ways to be fair across the whole of the system. In addition to that, you as a governing board have always taken the position that the placement dollars, which the high school instructors get from the state, that the placement dollars are dollars that should be applied to the whole of the organization, because it isn't just a student getting placed isn't just because of a teacher. Sometimes a student comes here and stays here because the grounds are immaculate. Sometimes a student comes here and stays here because the relationship they had with our nurse. Sometimes a student comes here and stays here because of the admissions process. So it takes the whole of the system. Last year's placement was about $4,000, that per individual. That placement figure doesn't go into that analysis as well. So when you start talking about the total compensation that this governing board has leaned into over the past 4 or 5 years on the support staff, it's far greater than what that 23% reflected when we spoke last Thursday. But I get that doesn't answer the question. The answer to your question is going to come across in a way that probably doesn't sound as user-friendly as I like to be. But on the high school side, we're driven to be competitive for salaries and compensation with the industry. And so when we are trying to put forth a salary offer to a welding instructor who we know can make significantly more, we oftentimes don't have that discrepancy in some of our support staff. That doesn't mean that they're not as valuable in the organization. It just means that the market is bearing an amount for compensation in one area that's different. And so what we're presenting is a compensation that is competitive within the market analysis, not intending to be disrespectful, on the heels of saying that you have over the past 4 or 5 years looked at a number of different ways to be fair, not just to certify teachers, but to support staff with all that you have done over the past 4 or 5 years.
Any more discussion?
So just checking my comprehension, this vote is
To
to
amend.
approve the amendment, not necessarily to approve the action. You'll have to come back again with the second motion.
Which is B and B all the way
Right.
across.
Correct.
And the original motion is,
The original motion was to approve B and B all the way across, and then it was amended by Hobson to do C and C. And now we have to vote on if we're going to adopt the amendment.
okay. Everybody had any questions on that? Okay, so the difference is 1% more for the other staff, correct?
Certified.
Yeah.
Between 4 and 5, okay. Let's ask for the question on the amendment, please.
Governing board members, all those in
No,
favor?
No, let's
You want to
do
do
roll
individual?
call.
You want to do roll call?
Okay, I got it right here. Lane,
Aye.
Boyle,
No.
Ellison,
Aye.
Watkins,
Aye.
Metcalf,
No.
Hobson,
Aye.
Boggs is a no, and Covington.
No,
So motion passed. So we needed,
I apologize, I wasn't keeping track. Did the motion pass or did the motion?
let's see, no, we got,
3, 6,
4 and 4.
4, 4?
you voted no, 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 4-4.
4-4, so the motion did not
Aye,
pass.
so it fails.
Did not pass.
Correct. So the motion on the table is the original motion, which I believe was
BB.
B and B.
Correct.
And that was seconded, I believe, by Ms. Boggs.
Correct.
So opportunity for discussion on this motion.
Yeah, I really sympathize with a desire, especially as an educator myself, to make sure that we are, to the extent possible, increasing our salaries as much as possible at every occasion. And we are heading into a pretty uncertain fiscal future in the education space between decreases of the massive waves of federal funding and then an uncertain budget down at the State House. I think that option B allows us to increase salaries for our high school instructors at double the rate of inflation, which is fantastic and something very important that we should do. It allows us to get competitive with our folks at Westmac across the valley and also increase other staff salaries above the rate of inflation. I get nervous to go too much higher than that middle option, given the uncertainty that we just don't have, to use Dr. Metcalf's phrase, the crystal ball for down the road. So that's why I proposed option B across.
Yeah, I agree with everything Boyle says.
I would agree with that. I have seen too many things where we've been a generous, where there's been a generous board, and then the legislature or some unforeseen issue comes along, and that generosity ends up getting taken away in other forms. And I cannot stomach the idea of a teacher having to give up something that they've already been given because of something not in our control. That's untenable to me. So I would agree that the option B and B is sufficient, but I think we need to take a roll call on that. Do that.
Okay, we'll call for the question.
Okay.
All right?
Roll
Lane,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Boyle,
Aye.
Ellison,
Aye.
Watkins,
Aye.
Metcalf,
Aye.
Hobson,
Aye.
and Boggs is an aye.
All
Motion.
right,
Motion carries.
we now have raises.
Can I make a comment
Yes, you
before you
can.
move on? I really appreciate the dialogue and the thoroughness of your board, this board's processing the information. It's never easy. This is one of the more difficult decisions each year. And I think the opportunity to have the discussion and to be open about it it speaks to the quality of the board. So thank you.
Okay, item D, contract renewals for certified staff and hourly staff. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve 6D.
I'll second.
And Lane seconded.
Are we saying D as in dog breath?
Yes,
Yes.
dog breath.
Dirty dogs. Okay, now, any discussion? Dr. Wilson, do you want to say a few things?
Not very many things. Just as a reminder, though, this is the first of several different groups that will come before you. So this isn't the last time you'll see lists of employees. This is just our high school instructors and the majority of our support staff.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mr. President, would you like for me to call the vote?
Acclamation.
Acclamation be fine with me.
All right. All those in favor of item 6D as in dog breath, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor, all those not in favor of 6D, please say nay. Mr. President, motion carries.
Make sure that makes it to the minutes.
Yes.
You can strike the dog breath. Thank you, Mr. Watkins.
It's on video. All right.
Your quote.
Item 6E, health benefits. Do I hear a motion before discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move for the approval of item 6E, the fifth item on the sixth paragraph of the agenda.
I second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
So, Mr. President, if possible, I would like Ms. Perez to come and present to you, because I do believe there are some choices that you have to make in there. As a reminder, what I would, like we spoke about last week, one of the things I think the governing board has done and has done well outside of the compensation is always taking the position that if you are an employee here, you will get coverage for your health care. That's not a family coverage plan, but you'll get a health care coverage. And so that has always been part of what we have anchored ourselves to, and I think in some ways that has carried us in ways that the increases haven't. So, Ms. Perez, if you'd please present.
This is just to renew what has been, that we already have in place.
Yeah, so this is just a renewal, but the increase, the health rate has gone up.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
of course, why not?
Correct. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. The offerings that you have before you are very similar to what we're offering this year. Overall, our increase for the year is 10%. Obviously, the rate, depending on the plan that our employees choose, we have between three options. We have what we call the core plan, the copay plan, and the high deductible plan with a health savings account that's associated with it. We have about 219 employees. The plan itself, as I mentioned, it's about 10% increase, experienced a 10% increase. Some of the auxiliary benefits that are associated are employee paid. There were some slight changes in there. With the plan offering through Kairos, one of the biggest highlights given that there is a continuous increase in healthcare cost, is their implementation of what they call their centers of excellence. And it's basically getting a list of providers that will be able to provide services for chronic illnesses, for things like that. They are usually very high expenses, with the hopes that they can contract for a lower rate. And so those are kind of like the highlight of the plan offerings that they have that they're offering this year. But as it relates to our employees, we have the three options. And as Dr. Wilson stated, it has been traditionally employer paid at the lowest plan, with some of the other options providing the employees the opportunity, if they choose a more expensive plan. In some cases, they do pay a portion of it, but EVIT does fully fund the lowest one, which is the high deductible plan.
So just another quick question. The 10% raise, are we pushing that over to the employee, or are we absorbing that?
So EVIT is absorbing that. The
Okay.
only increase to the employee would be if they've selected the highest plan,
Okay.
the highest cost plan.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
We have a motion. Yeah, we have a motion for either. Okay, then let's call for the question, acclamation, I assume.
All those in favor of item 6E, as in Ernie, please say aye.
Aye.
Right.
All those opposed of 6E, please say nay. Item carries, motion carries, Mr. President.
Okay, policy revision, first read. Mr. Cobell.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. This is a revision to Section 28 of Chapter 5 about staff orientation and training, and we're just adding to the portions of the training to include data and internet security awareness, and that's based on a recommendation from the Auditor General. And there's a regulation that goes with that, which you do not need to approve. It's just there for your information. So the only thing you will be approving when it comes up for the second read is that we're adding data and internet security awareness to our district employee training annually.
Kind of understand what we went through this year, the reason we're having it.
Yes. And shall we move on to item 8? Because that's all you get on items.
Okay. On to item 8. A motion, maybe A through D.
I'll move that we approve items 8A through 8D.
Oh, yeah.
I'll second that. That way Dr. Wilson and Mr. Colbert could save their voices. Colbert. Colbert.
Mr. Chairman, quick question.
Calbert.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Are
sir.
we gonna get a report from the Pulse Records pricing proposal? I'm not sure we should, yeah, I'd like to pull out that one separately.
B?
No, it's C,
C.
the Pulse
the
Records Studio. I'd just like to know what's going on with them.
Okay, if you want to pull that one out, that's fine. Can we have
I can restate the motion.
restate the motion?
I'll move that we approve items 8 A, B, and D.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? No, that's for the question. Acclamation.
All right. All those in favor of items 8A, 8B as in boy, and 8D as, 8D,
Is it dog?
Dog
please,
breath?
I'm not going to say dog breath. So items 8A, B, and D, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, to items 8A, B, and D, please say nay. Motion carries, Mr. President.
Thank you. Discussion on, get a motion for Z, C like cat.
Is it, Mr. Kelble, can you give us a report about this? Is it, are you the person?
I believe I would, Mr. Hobson, if you.
Okay, sorry.
So one of the things that, I mean, we've talked before about how our radio program, Broadcast Journalism, has continued to kind of expand and grow. National High School Radio Station of the Year winners. And one of the things that we have in the radio program is a studio in which we can actually record live sessions. And the studio is actually an exceptional studio. And one of our newer instructors, Noah, who has a background in recording, took a look at the studio and said, you know, maybe there's a way that we can use it not just for our students, but for the community, and have it be that it's a facility that's rented that generates revenue, but also is a service to some of the younger musicians who maybe don't have a ton of money, who can't necessarily get into some of the sessions that are already blocked in other institutions. And so he came to the table saying, you know, would it be possible for us to start renting it out and actually utilizing it as a recording studio, not only to generate a bit of revenue, but also it gives our students the opportunity to work it and to run it. And even if we're not working it and running it, the more our students can see that real world example of what they're doing and what it translates into, the better that opportunity for our students is. And so this is just that. It's the opportunity for our students, our recording studio, to be utilized not just by EVIT students, but by the community at a rental fee.
Absolutely. This is a student-based enterprise. This is an incredible opportunity for our community to be able to see the fantastic work we do and the equipment that we have, and for our students to get real-world hands-on experience with what they're using, what they're learning in this program.
Well, will Noah be then running it as a studio after hours? Is that how that will work? As his own enterprise using the school's facilities?
So he wouldn't be running it as his own enterprise. It would be ran through EVIT's enterprise account, and it may very well be. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, we'd be renting it then as after hours, sort of for.
Or we would be renting it during hours if a session was needed to be recorded, but our students would be able to be part of that session.
Okay. Sounds like a great idea.
Just one more
Yeah.
question that I have about this. So if this is being used during business hours, are we going to be able to, are there certain limitations on who can come in? Okay, I just
Correct.
wanted to make sure. And then after hours, we would have security, we would have, okay, we would have all those
In
pieces in
case the
place.
rock band came.
Yeah.
Well, I know, we don't want the Rolling Stones to bypass this, so.
Might blow our minute.
Listen, if the Rolling Stones want to come, they can bring in whoever they want.
Okay, so we
But
have the
yes.
right to refuse people that we don't care to.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Should we have moved that motion for discussion?
What?
No
Should
shirt,
we have
no
moved that
service,
for
okay.
discussion?
No shoes, no shirt, no
So you can
service,
just do
okay.
an action item, a motion now.
Okay. All right, I am moved to approve 8C.
Second.
We got a second down here. We'll go with you. You showed up.
Acclamation?
I'll take it then.
You want acclamation?
Mr. Bull, we'll do it by
There was-
acclamation, yes.
And there's some part of the motion about a priority opening for the Rolling Stones, as I recall. That should be reflected somewhere in the minutes.
I've got a hotline to Mick right now. I can put it in there and he'll be here. He'll fly a jet over with everybody. He'll be here as long as we've got some snacks for him.
Okay.
As long as we're clear.
Call for the question by acclamation, please.
All right. All those in favor of item 8C, Pulse Record Studio Rental, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries, Mr. President.
Thank you. Executive session, do we have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry, boy, you beat him again. Okay, we have a motion. Can we have a ask for the question?
All those in favor of going into executive session 9A, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed who want to sit here by themselves, please say nay. Motion carries. We go into executive session, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank
we're
you.
Back in the room up there.
Meeting back to order. Light hammer. Okay. Staff reports. Dr. Wilson.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, not a lot to report as we're on spring break effectively today. So with our new schedule, it's a 2-week intercession. During that 2 weeks, we are, though, still using that time to provide some professional development for our teachers. We have some professional development for our first-year staff. One of the things we learned in years past is when we front-load the whole professional development right at the first of the school year, that isn't necessarily best practices. And so we look for opportunities throughout the year to kind of bring the new teachers back in and do check for comprehension and make sure that we're still headed in the right direction. We also have some professional development for some seasoned staff and some curriculum writing that's happening on our campuses, which is exciting to see. As you know, we're fully in construction, and we're hopeful that we're going to get the fire building back right after the start of the second semester, which is exciting. Your building should be done within the next 3 to 4 weeks. So hopefully, if it's not this next meeting, the meeting after, 2 meetings down, we'll be back in the governing board room. We're still trending for a July finish of the area in building 1 that's being remodeled, the baking area and the cafe area. And then we'll turn our attention to the rest of building 1 as well as to the plant. I have to tell you, the plant is going to wind up being a challenge for us because there was not a lot of preventative maintenance done over the past 30 years. And so there's going to be some significant work that's being done there. I do appreciate the partnership we have with Chase. I think they've been a good partner in this project. I think building a building with nobody there is much different than renovating, and renovating is oftentimes more problematic, but they've been very patient with us. I'd like to take a minute and thank both Carlos and Alex. Oftentimes I get frustrated when the Zoom isn't working or the sound isn't working, but they're here every single day that we have our meetings, checking and double checking and making sure that it works. And so sometimes I'm not good at thanking them publicly for the work they do to lean in so we can have these meetings. So absent of that, that's all I got, Mr. President.
You're sure?
Well, no, but I see y'all faces and realize it's time to wrap
He's
it
on
up.
spring, he's on a
Wrap it
break.
up, Chad.
Okay, we'll go to 11A calendar. We have a meeting, I guess, March 25th. Anybody want to add something to that meeting?
Mr. President, are you talking about an agenda item?
No, you, on the calendar, you want to put it on the calendar for agenda item, yes.
No, just questioning.
I'd like to hear our lobbyist in person.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I previously asked Kevin if it were possible to, and I maybe should be asking you, were possible to, the ASBA gave us training on open meeting laws stuff, and I think we should do that regularly. And I spoke briefly with Kevin about maybe having him do the open meeting law training for us all, and I'd like to schedule that sometime soon.
Good
Just
idea.
a reminder for everybody.
Good idea.
So I'm not asking necessarily for the next meeting, but I'd like that we do that training soon.
Mr. Hobson, thank you for your ideas. Hearing none, let's go. I make a motion to adjourn. Item B.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Acclamation.
All those in favor of adjourning for item 11B, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you for your time